So when we did the table read, I remember Sarah Michelle Gellar, she was like reading her lines and stuff. And then it says like, her character so-and-so just falls off the roof and she's like, shit. And then like, as it gets later on, I was like, Randy walks into a van and is like killed. We were literally just dying at the table read, each of us. I thought it was a unique role with really amazing lines and like a voice that was speaking on a horror movie and the way that the audience would speak at it. When I watched horror movies, I thought, ooh, this is something I would say. So I definitely thought the character would resonate. Did I know it was going to be this cultural icon that I'm talking to you 25 years later on a hotel room couch in Vegas? No, I did not. I look at it, you could see the young comic in me just trying to come out as much as he can. I would try things, and very fortunate to work with Wes and everybody that was allowing me to do that. And I think that that's what Randy was. He was a cinephile. He was a student of film. So he lived his life through film, and he would definitely imitate stuff, and that's how he communicated.
Have you noticed that blueprint has taken off outside of the horror genre?
Yeah, I think that's good. I think Randy started this now type of character, which is like the know-it-all best friend of pop culture consumption. And that's what he was. He was the early kind of OG of that. Yeah, I do remember Seth Cohen. I didn't watch that much of the OC, but yeah, I do feel that is more. And definitely he was the first part of like meta, you know what I mean? Like Scream is very meta, commenting on itself as it's happening within itself, so that was definitely something that was new. This was like early on, so I tell people Scream is the first script I ever got. The second script I ever got with like numbers and a watermark. The first one I ever read that saw that was Titanic. It was like they had numbers on it and stuff. And if you put it on the internet, you couldn't videotape, you couldn't copy it because it had a red line down the middle, so you couldn't read it. And we didn't get the ending, at least I didn't. So when we did the table read, I remember Sarah Michelle Gellar, she was like reading her lines and stuff. And then it says like, her character so-and-so just falls off the roof and she's like, shit. And then like, as it gets later on, I was like, Randy walks into a van and is like killed ceremoniously, slit of the neck. And I was like, shit. Like we were literally just dying at the table read, each of us. Different people were dying. I was like, we were all like, so it was, it was hard, but somebody's got to go. Randy, he didn't have enough, somebody's got to go. So he went.
Do you think that was a good choice though with Randy? Because he was so tied to the meta of it all?
That's a hot and cold question because yes, it impacted people so much. So it made such an impact. So because they're like, if Randy can go, anyone could go. But, that's how the series started off. Once Drew got killed, all bets were off, right? And I think that's what was really exciting about it, is that the characters you love could die. You don't always see that in horror movies. And so, but by doing it, people felt muted. They felt like, man, I wanted to have him because I feel like he says the things I want to say. Where is that character that's going to say what I feel, But I mean, he made it through the first three pretty much. Even the third one, he came back and he helped. And then the fourth one, he wasn't there at all. We'll see with the new one. But, I think they'll always try to keep a voice of it in there somehow because the audience likes that.
So did you film your filmed bits from the three when they were filming three, or did you already film those before they started production on the first?
No, I filmed those on in three. So we went down and they were like, I think we found a way. Mary Ann, the producer, she's like, I think we found a way to get you in the third one. It was like a videotape. And I was like, what? And they were like, yeah. And then it was exciting. And I was like, no way. So they found a way to incorporate Randy, and it made total sense. He saved the videotape. That's what he would do. But unfortunately, if you saw it, it means he was dead. So no, I went down and did it all in a day. It was awesome.
Do you still have your Blockbuster award that you won for your role as Randy?
Yes. How'd you know about that? You researched it?
Of course, yeah.
Now, are you ready for this? You'll like this because you like tea over there at EW. So not only do I have it, I believe me and Nev presented an award, or I presented an award to her. So we got on camera, but my acceptance speech was not on camera because there wasn't enough time. And I believe that was the year Julia Roberts won, I think, for My Best Friend's Wedding or something. So, you gotta let her go because, she made a nice speech. And so then they mailed the award to me, and I have the award, but the glass cracked. It cracked in the mail. So forever, it was a crack in it. So if you're watching this, Blockbuster, I know you're out of business, but we need to remake the glass part. Like I tell people, the script was so good and it flowed so well. It was written just so tightly that I didn't really improvise that much. I did some, just because, the camera's on you, so you have like a button. Glass decides whether to use that button or not. But because it was just sitting on you and you're just there and they don't cut and you come up with something. But the speech is so good, the video store is so good, the fountain I improvised more, added characters and stuff like that. But in a nutshell, the script was just so good that I didn't really have to.
And the fountain scene, you are the only characters to correctly guess who the killers were. So how does that feel?
Yeah, you're right. Boy, you really are. You're Randy. Wow, you're right. I'm the only person who. Wow, this is a new Easter egg. See, you're making me think now, man. Yeah, you're right. I guess you're right, and I did. The video store scene when Billy's there, it's definitely, you can tell that there's a creepiness about Billy. And I'm like, oh, hey, I was actually scared. And Stu definitely had his back. He was his little buddy that had that little bromance. So Randy was always on the outs, but you're right. And maybe there's clues there that they were the killer early. Someone like you seems like you know it. But there was a whole moment that Randy was supposed to get with Sydney. There's an alternative ending. You can research it. I did a video about it on my YouTube channel. But yeah, he says, Sydney, after this is all over, and Ty and her father, he says, would you maybe like to go to a movie? And then she stops and she goes, okay, as long as it's not a horror movie. And then I think they thought it was like too cheesy and too insensitive to do in that moment, so they never did it. But that what would have happened had they had gone to that movie?
Do you think then it would have just turned into a Bliss spinoff of Randy and Sydney?
Well, Randy could have maybe lived, and then, as she's battling these people, whether he's her boyfriend or it didn't work out, he's always going to feed her his information of what he thinks is going to happen to help guide her through this horror maze, and eventually probably be too much. And he's like, we got to move, we got to get out of this town. But yeah, it would have been an interesting alternative verse, right?
If you got to pick who would play Randy in the Stab movies, who would you pick?
Who was Randy in the Stab movies? That's fascinating. Where did they make Stab?
Random.
Was there anybody in there yet?
It was a random person though. Like I can't.
Oh, Luke
Wilson
was Skeet.
Luke Wilson was Skeet.
And Heather Graham was
Casey.
Casey, yes.
And then Tori Spelling was.
You
Sydney.
are so good at this. Who would? Ooh, that's really good. Who would play Randy and Stab? Do you get someone from the 90s or do you get someone now? Probably have to be like a young person now. If you're doing the Stab movies, who's like the hot young ingenue? That's who Randy is now. He's the hot young ingenue. I came back to 10 years after. You saw that.
You did.
Well, we never know. There's rumors of Ghosty coming back. Scream 5 is out, although I'm dead, but who knows where Jamie's coming.
You could be in video form again.
Why not? Why can't I be an avatar?
If Randy were to come back, what would be your ideal way of coming back?
I just think he would never have died. He would have had to set his death up because he knew that this was going to happen to him, so he got out before they got him. I always think he's one step ahead of the killers. That's my.
But do you think he would leave Sydney like that in 3 and 4, just to?
I don't have that worked out yet, but maybe he couldn't get to her because maybe he did things behind the scenes so she didn't get killed. Ooh, look at us writing it right now. That he was like, well, remember this happened, and that's why I did that without you knowing. Maybe he secretly helped.
And lastly, what's your favorite scary movie?
That's too hard to say, but I would definitely say The Exorcist is probably right now. But Hereditary is a new classic.